Response to King Yaqub's video, Lunar Sabbath Nuked, Part 4, the first week of MANNA. Hiram Yashra'al, servant of Yahuwah, and the Master Yahusha HaMashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad in the captivity, greetings. Brothers and sisters, this video is going to be about the first week of MANNA. I told you I was going to give some examples after laying the foundation with the first 3 videos. The first 3 videos were foundational to understanding the examples we're going to be going through in the rest of this series. So if you haven't viewed the first 3 videos first, please do so before viewing this one. But the first point that I want to make about the first week of MANNA, the first week that the manna fell for the children of yashra'al in Exodus chapter 16, is that the manna first fell on the 16th of the second month. So, in Exodus chapter 16, start reading in verse 1, the word reads, "And they departed from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of yashra'al came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month, after their going out of the land of Mitzrayim. And all the congregation of the children of yashra'al grumbled against Moshe and Aharon in the wilderness. And the children of yashra'al said to them, If only we had died by the hand of Yahuwah in the land of Mitzrayim, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to satisfaction. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to put all this assembly to death with hunger. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, See, I am raining bread from the Shamayim for you. And the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day in order to try them, whether they walk in my Torah or not. And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. And Moshe and Aharon said to all the children of yashra'al, At evening you shall know that Yahuwah has brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, and in the morning you shall see the esteem of Yahuwah. For he hears your grumblings against Yahuwah, and what are we that you grumble against us? And Moshe said, In that Yahuwah gives you meat to eat in the evening, and in the morning bread to satisfaction. For Yahuwah hears your grumblings which you make against him, and what are we? Your grumblings are not against us, but against Yahuwah. So here we have the children of yashra'al arriving on the 15th of the month, and as Moshe had said, so Yahuwah did. He rained down the quail that evening upon them, and so they were able to have meat to eat in the evening. And then the next morning was the first time that the manna had fallen. So, that being the case, here we have the first day of MANNA being the 16th, and it fell also on the 17th, the 18th, the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, and so the 22nd would have been the 7th day. That would have been the 7th day Shabbat. That would have been the day that they did not receive the manna after receiving twice as much the day before. Now, one thing that King Yaqub mentioned was the day that they arrived on the 15th, and how he saw conflict there because that day is supposed to be the Shabbat. Now, I don't know exactly what took place on that day, but I don't have a problem with the idea of even them traveling on that day, because remember, and this takes us to point number 2, and that is that the first commanded Shabbat in Scripture fell on the 22nd of the second month. That's the first time we actually see them commanded to keep the Shabbat. Now, did they keep it any time before? We don't know. We don't see it written, but we do see it written for the 22nd. And so that being the case, we know they kept it on the 22nd, on the 29th, and as for the 8th and the 15th, at the very least, we know that those were the right dates for the Shabbat on that month. And that's very important. It's very important that we recognize that in Exodus chapter 16, in the second month of that year, that the seventh-day Sabbath fell on the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th, because in one of the later videos where we're going to be dealing with the first fruits in the wave sheaf offering, in that video, and that should be about the 10th one, so stay with me throughout this series, because in that video, I am going to prove to you that the 15th day of the first scriptural month will be a seventh-day Sabbath every single year, without exception. I'm going to prove that. And so, if that can be proven, which I will do in that video, then what that means is that the month prior to Exodus chapter 16, the first month of that year, that the correct Shabbat dates would have been the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and the 29th. And so that being the case, here we would have the second consecutive month in Exodus chapter 16, where the seventh-day Shabbat, seventh-day Sabbath, would fall on the lunar dates of the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. So, brothers and sisters, that is the only way that is possible, because you all have maybe heard about this concept before about keeping the Shabbat on the same lunar dates 2 months in a row, 3 months in a row. And really, all you need is 2 months in a row. You really don't even need to go the 3. All you have to show is 2 months in a row to prove that the only way that can happen is if the count toward the Shabbat is reset by the new moon. You cannot do it with a traditional Roman seventh-day count. You cannot even do it with the Enoch calendar count, because with the Enoch calendar, that's something that I studied into. I believe I gave that a fair shake, and this was one of the issues that I had with the Enoch calendar, is that they do reset the count towards the Shabbat once a year. They don't do it once a month, they do it once a year. So they are correct in the first month of the year as far as the dates for the Shabbat, but what they do is that they go every seventh day for that particular year. And so this was one of the issues I had with the Enoch calendar, was that if at the beginning of it, Rosh Chodesh, all right, the head month of the year, this is what Mashah was shown in Exodus chapter 12, verse 1. He was shown the head month of the year, and he was shown the new moon. And so if that was the resetting point for the seventh-day Sabbath, which those who keep the Enoch calendar teach, then the problem we run into is that we get to the second month of the year, and we have the seventh-day Sabbath on the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th. And so the reset for the year, which is correct, that would not be enough in order to render second month Sabbaths on the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th. It would need to reset not only at Rosh Chodesh, the head of the year, the head month of the year. Not only at the new year would it need to reset, but it would also need to reset for the new moon of the second month in order to get Sabbaths on the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th, those first 2 months in a row. And so the only way to do that is to reset the count with the new moon. So as I said, please stay with me on this series, because in part 10, it's going to be about the first fruits and the wave sheaf offering. In that one, I'm going to prove to you that the 15th of the first scriptural month will always be a seventh-day Sabbath. Now, the last point that I want to make is this. And before I even go into the last point, now King Yaqub in his video, he had made the statement that nowhere in this chapter do we see anything mentioned about the new moon or counting from the new moon. It only mentions the 6 days of manna and then the seventh-day Sabbath. But what I would want to bring his attention to would be Exodus chapter 12, verse 1. Like I just said, that they were in a time of restoration. They had been in slavery for a number of years, and so the new moon and the head month of the year was revealed to Masha in chapter 12, verse 1. He said, "This shall be the beginning of months. This month is the beginning of months. It is the first month of the year unto you." So the new year and the new month had already been revealed to the children of Yashra'al before they got to Exodus chapter 16. So there doesn't need to be a mention of the new year or the new months, because it was already revealed prior. Now, the third and final point is that in verse 35 of Exodus 16, the word reads, "And the children of Yashra'al ate manna 40 years until they came to an inhabited land. They ate manna until they came to the border of the land of Canaan." So we see that this took place for 40 years that they received the manna. But what we were shown in Exodus chapter 16, with the manna falling for 6 days, the double portion being given on the 6th day and none being given on the 2nd day, just like creation, we are only shown what happened that week. We're not shown what happened the next week. We're not shown what happened the weeks following. We were only shown what happened that week. So we can't speculate on what happened on the weeks afterwards, because this was a point that King Yaqub was trying to make. For one, he said that lunar Sabbath keepers believe that the new moon is the Shabbat. Now, we talked about that a few videos back, and we proved that the new moon is not the Shabbat. But he was under the impression that we believe the new moon is the Shabbat. And so with that in mind, he was calling into question on the new moon days, what would happen with the manna? Would he rain down 3 times as much? Would he rain down 4 times as much? And this is an argument that I myself used to make when I called myself a lunar Sabbath debunker. But the problem with that argument is that there's nothing that would hinder manna falling or being gathered on the new moon, because that you are able to do some work on the new moon, and so that wouldn't be an issue. But we're not shown what happened on the new moon. We're not shown what happened on the feast days. Like, for example, what happened on the Day of Atonement. You see, we're not shown these things, so we shouldn't speculate. And so we're only told what happened on that particular week. And so the Exodus chapter 16, just like Genesis chapters 1 and 2, that cannot be used to prove a perpetual 7-day week throughout all eternity. Because verse 35, all it says is they ate manna for 40 years. It doesn't say that they repeated the same exact pattern that we see here in this chapter, that just repeated itself for 40 years. That's not what it says. It says they ate manna for 40 years. So we got to stick with what it does say and stay away from what it does not say. And so there's more to it than this. I wanted to hit the high points. If you wanted me to go more in depth about the first week of manna, message me and we can go more in depth. But I wanted to make this short, sweet, and to the point, just like the other videos. And so we're going to move on. And with that, I will say, Shalom.